like we're live. So,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Basil Watson, an internationally renowned sculptor from Jamaica, currently in Georgia, and I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to interview him here in sunny Sacramento, California. And so, just to give a brief introduction, Mr. Watson, also known as Commander Watson, although a very humble man, I might add, is from a line of artists. His father was a famous painter and educator from Jamaica, and although Basil has chosen to focus primarily on three-dimensional work, he's nonetheless still a very accomplished, and I would add, great artist. So I want to thank you for agreeing to the interview.
Well, it's a pleasure to be interviewed by you, and pleasure to be here in sunny Sacramento.
Thank you. So I wanted to just, I don't want to necessarily cover things that you have talked about in other interviews, but I may be a bit redundant in some of the questions, so if you could just bear with me if I am. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about how it is that you decided to go into three-dimensional sculpture work versus taking the path of your father as a painter?
Well, drawing is my first love. So in high school, I drew a lot, from figure. A lot of influence from my father because he was also a master draftsman in his own right. So I developed this passion for drawing and struggled with applying color, but seeing more the form and rendering the form through drawing. So when I went to the art school, I discovered sculpture, and I found that it translates perfectly from drawing into sculpture, and there was no need for color, and I felt that I had a natural aptitude for three dimensions, so I decided to follow it.
Now, I've heard some people say that, well, they draw or paint, but they have a hard time transitioning to doing three-dimensional work. How is it that was for you to be such a natural transition?
Well, by drawings, through drawing, I was exploring the figure in a three-dimensional way. I was always taught and encouraged by my father that one has to understand how to feel the subject where you cannot see it. So you're looking at it not as a flat object, but finding the three-dimensional quality. So when I discovered sculpture, I felt that I had a natural aptitude for it, aptitude for the form. And I think that sculpture is easier than drawing, actually, because you can be a lot more calculating with sculpture, and drawing is such a sensitive medium that it's difficult to maintain the fresh quality of drawing and to understand it. To represent three dimensions on a two-dimensional plane is a challenge also. So sculpture came easily for me.
Now, I had the pleasure of meeting with you a few months ago, and I remember you mentioning that you like to get a feel for the subject that you're working with. Would you care to elaborate on that a little bit more in depth?
My practice has carried me in the direction of going deeper rather than wider, in terms of understanding the personality of the subject and not just looking at the physicality and the form, or representing the likeness, but trying to understand the personality of the subject. And in that way, it brings the sculpture more to life. It it provides a motivation for the form more than just form's sake. So I have found over the years that I have worked with models for 10 years, 8 years, 6 years, over long periods of time, repeatedly, each time getting a better understanding, not just the form, but of the personality as well. I ask my models to express themselves as opposed to me bringing an idea to them, which might be foreign to their personality. I try to tap into their personality and represent what their spirit represents.
So if you work with models for 10 years or more, then I would think that says a lot about the importance of a relationship with that individual or individuals. So then would it be correct to suggest that as you become more familiar with that person and the depths of their personality, that enables you to do even more a closer connection and representation of that individual?
Yeah, the models, it takes a lot of trust and understanding for the model to strip herself physically and emotionally, and in turn emotionally naked, for me to explore their body and their personality. So there is a great degree of trust develops in terms of the relationship between the model and the artist. And in turn, they have to expose not just the body, but expose their personality, their emotions, their thoughts. And this kind of relationship deepens, or friendship develops. To work with somebody for 10 years, you have to have that sort of respect and relationship, that trust. I keep coming back to the idea of trust, that you are not violating them physically or emotionally, or representing them in a way that they don't want to be represented. So it has to be a two-way street where they are giving as well as the artist is giving.
Well, communication then is key.
Of course, well, art is about communicating. So it starts with a communication between the artist and model, and by extension with the viewer. So it's all about communication.
In speaking of communication, I remember that we talked in the past about, well, focusing on the entire figure or physique of a model versus just, for example, the face, a portrait in that respect. Can you just explain why you choose to focus primarily on the entire figure versus, say, just, I do know you do portraiture as well.
I do portraiture, but it's about communication, right? And the entire body communicates. The story is not told only in the face, but in the entire body, the body, as we call it, body language. So I find that there's much more to see and to understand by exploring the entire human body. I find that the human body is so beautiful and so expressive that things that one might learn to hide in your facial expression sometimes are betrayed in your physical or in the rest of your body, your posture, your carriage, all your emotions reflect in your entire body. So I find the whole spectrum to be interesting.
That's interesting because some would suggest that if you are able to study facial features and expressions in depth, that would enable you to understand what might be going on internally, mentally, or emotionally. But you're suggesting that that's only a partial avenue towards understanding that person, that the entire figure offers the whole story.
Well, people have various degrees of control of their body, of their face, of everything. And you learn that the entire body speaks. Some learn to control their emotions in their face, but betray it in their body language, while somebody probably with more control will have control of their body as well. But how you stand, how you talk, how you walk. You can see your mother across the street, and without seeing the details of her face, know that it is your mother because of the way she talks, the way she stands, the way she walks, her body language speaks about the person. So, to really fully explore a person, you have to explore everything. No page goes unturned. You have to delve into as much as you can, and the figure is there to say. The figure says so much. So it's not to be ignored, and on top of it, it is also so beautiful. So it is worthy of expression, and that beauty comes out even in all situations. For me, the human body is supreme.
Well, you'll forgive me if I offer a few compliments because I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. I know you're a very humble man, but I love your work. And as you know, there's one figure in particular which I had an opportunity to see at your studio, which is probably my most favorite, And then, of course, I have my favorite portrait. I think it's Nanny of the Maroon.
Okay.
And I find that those and the sculptures in general are very powerful. And how, may I ask, did you come to select the model for Nanny of the Maroons? Because she comes across as a very strong, very powerful, independent individual in how you've depicted her. And I'm just wondering, how is it that you came to?
Well, I was fortunate that I had a model who had been modeling for me for quite some time, quite a couple of years, and had done quite a bit of work with her. She had dreads, a lot of hair. Her eyes were, extremely piercing and attractive. And when I got the commission to do Nanny, I thought that she portrayed the character that I wanted to portray in Nanny. She portrayed that quite beautifully. So I was fortunate in that case. And so I had to think of who Nanny was, what she represented, her experiences, her story, and try to find that in the model. And to a great degree I was successful, so a lot of credit to the model for inspiring a lot of work, because there was no real image of Nanny for me to draw on. So I had to be creative in terms of finding a personality that I thought fit what we expect of a Nanny. So,
You made an excellent selection, I might add.
well, as I say, I think I was quite fortunate in this happened.
Now, speaking of people who have passed on, I know that you did the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Of course, he's been gone for quite some time. How did you manage that one?
Well, because of my years of experience of sculpting, drawing, human figure, human being, portraits, you develop a sensitivity, develop a repertoire of images, forms, expressions, and then you have to try and understand the personality that they're expressing, try to understand their story, their mission, and what the public's view of the person is as well, because you want to connect. So in the case of Marcus Garvey, a national hero, an internationally known freedom fighter, and you want to connect to that image. So one is able to kind of draw on one's experiences in order to depict the kind of emotion and expression that you want. Coupled with photographs, reading or understanding the photographs is enhanced by the fact that I have drawn and sculpted in one figure for so long. So it gives me that ability to see a little bit more in terms of what the photograph is expressing and bringing everything together.
When you say reading in the photograph, do you mean reading the photograph literally, or just researching the subject?
Well, researching the subject, but literally as well. One understands the form, one can see very subtle expressions and understand the mood of the character at the time the photograph was taken. You look at various photographs and you might see the repetition of a certain mood or the expression of some emotion, and tap into that information and put it into the sculpture.
It's quite remarkable. As a matter of fact, you have an international footprint in terms of work that you've done, which brings me to the Windbush piece. And I understand that would be not only of historical significance in general, but in particular to Jamaica.
Yeah, and further than that, in particular to me as well.
Yes.
Because I am a product of the Windrush generation. My parents met on the boat going to England as part of that Windrush generation. I lived in England for a few years, the first 2-3 years, probably 3 years of my life. My parents lived in England for over a decade, and it was a significant part of their life. It was the majority of the time my parents were together. After going back to Jamaica, they eventually divorced. But that time together, my father's study as an artist took place during his stay in England, when was his base. So a lot of personal memory, subconscious memory, understanding, listening to stories of my parents. A lot of this took place. So when I was challenged to do the Windrush, a lot of that came to the fore. Regrettably, at the time, my parents were gone, so I had to rely on vague memory, help from people who knew my parents. I got photographs of my father when he was going on to the ship to go to England for the first time, things like that. So it was a very personal experience, very specific to Jamaica as well, and a really touching experience.
That's amazing to me. Coming back to stateside, you have, I'm not sure how tall the sculpture is of Dr. King, something like 30 feet or more?
No, it's only 12 feet.
12 feet, really?
And it's on a 6-foot pedestal, so it reaches 18 feet.
Okay, so that's quite a landmark.
It has become quite a landmark.
So, how does one decide on which projects that you want to give priority to?
And the bigger the project, the more I want to give priority to it. But they are all big in that they all require the same amount of intensity. If you swing in the bat, you only swing it one way to hit the home run, or in order to hit a home run, you can only swing it one way. It's the project that's on the table that's important.
But certainly you must have some interest in the particular subject that you're being commissioned for. I mean, I'm just,
Well, often I'm hearing about the story for the first time. I have to go and do the research, and that research brings the story to me to life. I have to bring it to life. It has to be something that resonates with me, something that I can connect to, something that I feel passionate about, and then the work takes place.
it's very interesting. I want to ask you before I fail to do this is you had mentioned you have a project in the works in Georgia, a sculpture garden. I don't know if you want to talk about that, if that's too premature to talk about that
It's a
now
bit
or not.
premature.
A bit premature that we won't. No, I'm just wondering how it is that you're able to manage all these projects because you have.
Well, I would say my daughter helps me. She has become my administrator and assistant. So a lot of the paperwork passes on to her, and keeping up to breast with the juggling all the different balls. She helps with that. And that allows me a lot of freedom to focus on a project at a time. Usually, projects are at different stages, so the sculpting aspect of it or the designing aspect of it. Designing aspect of it is a very kind of quiet process where I will just store things in my head and let it simmer while I do other things. At some stage I pull everything out and decide to start designing. And then from the design it goes to having it scanned, having it enlarged, which gives me time to work on other things. So sometimes I do have to juggle more than one project, 2 or 3 projects at a time. But then the serious work, serious creative part of the job gets my exclusive attention. And then there are other parts that I can are not as intense, but I can keep going while doing something else.
So that brings to mind another question. What do you consider to be the serious parts? I understand that there's different phases to your process, but what would be the most critical phases of your process?
The most critical phase would be developing the big picture, not necessarily the details of the dress or the details of the face. That's not as intense. I wouldn't say easy, but it's not as intense. What is intense is developing what the figures are doing, the story behind it, the composition of the big forms and how big forms relate to each other. So that designing phase is great, and also what I want to say. So I kind of envisage what I want to say. I might have a few images in my head. I start to put them together. There are other supporting, physically supporting as well as conceptually supporting aspects that I need to sort out. Once that is sorted, so I have 3 figures standing on a suitcase linked together in this way. They will be seen in this sequence, or the view from one side and view from the other side, getting all the 3-dimensional quality of it together is the hard part. And then modeling details, modeling a pants or a shirt or a hand or a face. is not as intense as, because I've modeled the hand 1,000 times. But what does the hand do? That's what is difficult to decide.
So in that particular project, the one that's in Britain, right?
Which was that?
The sculpture itself was in England.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have models that you used as part of that process?
Yeah. I had models for all the figures, male, female, and the little girl was modeled by my twin granddaughters.
Oh, wow.
So I had to make sure that although they look very much alike, they are slightly different. So I had to make sure that it looked like both of them. And then the female was a model that I worked with over a number of years, and she has a good feel for tapping into the character of the concept. And then I had a male model. So the male model came from photographs, and then I got a male model to help me work out a lot of the structural aspects of it. So I did have models. So a lot of that was worked out before I went to India in a maquette, a model maybe 3 feet tall. And then it was, so once I worked out precisely the dimensions, the scale, and so on, I digitally enlarged it, feeling confident that the model was correct. So once enlarged, it remained correct. Some editing was necessary, but that's always the case. And I was able to do the large final modeling a lot from photographs and so on, because I didn't have the opportunity to carry my models with it. It was done in England. So I did as much preliminary planning as possible. If it's being done in my studio in Atlanta, I can call the model in at any time and work out solutions, which I do from time to time, depending on the project.
Getting back to Georgia, I wanted to mention or ask about the late John Lewis. You met him, did you not?
I met him very briefly, about 2004, so maybe 20 years ago. I met him very briefly. I had very little understanding of who he was and what he had done. It was at an art festival, and there was a lot of excitement about his presence. I was introduced to him very briefly, but in the ensuing years, I began to understand who he was, seeing his contribution as a member of the government and so on. So, and his historical contribution with civil rights and so on. So, I developed an affinity or a love for him even before I got the commission. So I actually did a portrait bust of him before I got the commission, not knowing that the commission was even out there. So I feel a great affinity for John Lewis.
Is that the same bust that you had cast in bronze? The one that you, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing that you did it before the commission. Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to share that perhaps we haven't touched on yet about your work?
What I'd say about my work is it's a love for the human form and its expressiveness. And what that does in exploring this avenue, it teaches me about people, which in turn teaches me about myself. So in time I've come to recognize or realize that It's a self-enlightening journey. My mission is not necessarily to create sculpture. Sculpture is just a vehicle, or art is just a vehicle for my own self-development, enlightenment, and so on. And I have recognized that as true as I am to my art is as true as my art will be to me. And more I will understand the truth about myself. So art is, for me, just a vehicle, not necessarily creating products, but where it carries me in terms of my own understanding of myself.
It reminds me of the quote that know thyself, which is the greatest lesson in the world, self-discovery.
And I think we can know ourselves through almost anything, if not everything we do. There are countless avenues, vehicles to carry us to that point of self-enlightenment. Sculpture is my vehicle. That's one of the vehicles I have chosen. It's no better or worse than any other. For me, it works.
Well, I have to say that the world is certainly enriched by your works. They're absolutely masterful and very powerful, filled with feeling and emotion. I just, of course, anyone who sees your work will more than likely come to a similar conclusion. You know, you must invest a lot of time in a particular project. Is there a average amount of time it takes you to complete a major project?
Yeah, I would. Well, first of all, I just work. I don't work hard. I don't work soft. I just do what's to be done as long as I have the energy. So, you know, spending 10-hour, 14-hour days has become easy for me because when I'm working, time moves so quickly. But a major project, probably anywhere between a year to 18 months, sometimes 2 years. One thing sculpture does teach is patience, because you don't have the idea today and see the fruition of it tomorrow. It goes through so many processes. You have to figure out the engineering of it, the materials, and then you lose it in the casting, and it comes back in the bronze, and the bronze has to be clean. So it takes a long time between concept and actually seeing the final work. So, you know, you do what you can do. Life teaches you, sculpture teaches you patience, and you just have to keep putting one foot forward and enjoy the process.
I had a professor at UC Berkeley once, and he taught a course, and he called it process art. That reminds me of, yeah, it reminds me of that.
Yeah, well, you have to trust the process, and once you understand the process and go through that process, then it seems easy. It's not necessarily easy, but it seems that way.
Wow. Well, I must say I'm really, first of all, quite delighted to have a chance to connect with you. I must admit, it's a lot shorter distance to travel from Sacramento, from the Bay Area to Sacramento than it is from the Bay Area to Georgia.
So, the mountain has come to Muhammad.
Yes, exactly. So I just again want to express my appreciation for you taking time out of your schedule to grant this interview, and I look forward to.
Well, when it's about my art, I'm always grateful that people want to see my art, want to talk about my art. I don't take it for granted. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, but I would never feel that people are obligated to paid any attention. So when people pay my work some attention, I'm always grateful.
Well, you know, if anyone sees your work, they can't help but pay attention to it. You know, it's attention grabbers.
Well, those who don't pay attention to it, I don't even know them because they are gone. And I appreciate those who do pay attention to it because those are the ones that come to me.
And people can not only enjoy and gain a lot from it aesthetically, but also the message that you're conveying through your work is something that they can gain as well. So I, for one, and I think I probably speak for a lot of people, appreciate the effort and the results you get as a result of all that effort, because you're one of our living masters today, and so I just want to thank you again for talking with me. Yeah.
Is that the sign?
I think so. The spirits have spoken. And I hope this is still recording. It looks like
You know, it has a. This was not on enough because it has a lens shut.
the lens is shut the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, this one was recording, so
Yeah.
and actually the lighting was better on this one, and I think
Okay.
actually your image comes through better in this one anyway. But I did want two angles.
Okay. Okay.
So folks, don't pay attention to this. This is all.
Because
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's been like that.
Okay. Well. So thank you.
Oh.